All right, welcome. Loopers for Life, game number 24, powered by the Talgrace Marketing Media Studio. I'm here with my co-host, T. Ridge, cousin T. Rock from the block.
Hey, I'm fired up today, Josh.
Today's going to be a great day. I mean, and as you can see, we are still without our other co-host, Joey Sears, who is
out looping.
He's out looping. I mean, and that's what keeps this relevant. We have to have a kid. I can't wait till he comes back in studio and we kind of get some caddy stories.
Yeah,
but
he sent some pictures. It would be pretty interesting stories for sure.
I tell you what, some of those pictures up there at that Pete Dye golf course in French Lick, I mean, that he posted, oh my gosh, that place is so nice. Have you been there before, T?
I haven't. My dad's played there several times, talks about how amazing it is. My Uncle Bill plays there quite a bit, but I haven't. I want to get there.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful place, and it's up there in the middle of that kind of Hoosier Forest, and man, it's on the top of the world when you're up there, so it's really pretty. But speaking about being on top of the world, we are excited. You're excited. I'm excited. Pumped. We have a guest on Loopers for Life here today. Someone who is very instrumental to me, Teague.
Yep.
Someone who I used to call boss. Someone has really moved the needle in the game of golf in Kentucky. He may be known as Justin's dad, but I like to call him Mr. Michael Thomas. Master Mike. He's a PGA professional. Mike Thomas, how are you, sir?
All's good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. So again, you're best known for being Justin's dad.
Yes. I've translated into that other life of somebody's dad instead of just being my own person.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, you are fantastic, your own person. Again, for those who are listening, I was fortunate enough to work for you back in 1999, all the way back, 1999, 2000. You were president.
That's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago, Mike. I mean, and let's think about it. I mean, let's talk about you real quick. President of the Kentucky section. You were a national board member for on the PGA of America, which is a huge effort that you put forth. 20 served the membership at Harmony Landing for 27 years, pro emeritus, which is a cool title. I mean, not many golf professionals get to say that.
That means you're getting old when they call you that.
The pro emeritus. I mean, is there like a classification in the PGA for pro emeritus, Mike?
No. Yeah, usually half century club, but I'm not quite there yet. That's the classification.
You've pretty much have served every role in the game of golf for the state of Kentucky. Just kind of talk about like the affairs of Kentucky golf and what you've seen and how it has provided a roadmap for someone like your son who is, grew up loving the game and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. Obviously, golf's been very good to my family. My dad's a golf professional, and then obviously Justin. So golf's been an integral part of our life, and I just got involved with section activities. How most people get involved, you start getting up and complaining at a meeting. Next thing you know, you're on a committee, and next thing you know, you're on the board, and next thing you know, you're an officer. And but it was a fun time. I learned a lot from other people, more so than what I had to offer is what everybody else had to offer. And it was fun to see, the formulation of the junior tours. And as a lot of people may know, the KPGA works with the KGA, which is the amateur body of Kentucky. So, we have a relationship with them. And, I learned a lot about golf in Kentucky and was able to give back just a little bit of to the game that gave me so much, really.
And you talked about your father. I mean, he recently passed away, and I was fortunate enough to play a lot of golf with you and PT and Mr. Thomas. And that was the original Mr. Thomas. I mean, I don't think I've ever called you Mr. Thomas, but
no, don't do that.
It was usually just Master Mike. That's what I. But PT was at Zanesville Country Club. Is that correct, or was it a golf?
Yes.
Zanesville Country Club in it's kind of Southern Ohio. Fantastic player. He was Southern Ohio Player of the Year numerous times, played in the PGA Championship, played in the U.S. Open. Really, kind of your upbringing on the golf course. Kind of speak to that and how that led you down a path to where ultimately you played collegiately at Morehead State.
Yeah, I kind of like Justin, where I grew up at the golf course, so I had an outlet to go play and practice every day, and there wasn't near the opportunities for juniors back then. We would have 2 or 3 tournaments a summer, and those were a real highlight to your summer to have. They were usually, besides the U.S. Junior or U.S. Junior qualifier and your state juniors, there would be some club that would host like a junior invitational or something. That was it. There were no junior tours or AJGA or anything like that. And so, like a lot of people, after I got out of college, I thought that I was a decent player, and I'd try to play a little bit. And that lasted about 6 months before I realized I was way out of my league, and decided to get interested in the business of golf. And it's been very rewarding for me to spend all these years in the business of golf and meet so many people. I have no regrets at all.
Yeah, and where did you kind of when you got into the business, Mike? I mean, you worked in Pittsburgh, if I can remember correctly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was north of Pittsburgh at a place called Oak Tree Country Club. Worked for Bob Collins up there, who was very involved in his section, president, and so forth.
Okay.
And then I went from there to Pittsburgh for 6 years before moving to Kentucky. So I worked at Fox Chapel for Mark Hessler. So
That's a fantastic golf course, correct?
yeah, like a lot of people, I know you work for Sledge and some good people. I was fortunate to be mentored by some people that treated me well and helped me learn the golf business. And I just tried to pass that on to the people that work for me.
And you did it well. I mean, and I can sit here and attest that right there.
That's awesome.
So, did you leave Fox Chapel to come to Harmony Landing? And can you speak a little bit about Harmony Landing back in the day?
No, there was an opportunity. My first head pro's job was in Pittsburgh, so I left Fox Chapel
Okay.
to work there. It was a development, and as some developments go, it started going south, and I got out of there before it did, and I just was very fortunate. I started applying for some jobs, and Harmony Landing just kind of came out of nowhere. I did not know. I did, and got an interview and got a job, and 30 years later, I was still hanging around there, but. I was very fortunate. Harmony Landing was a great club. It was a great membership. And, it's kind of where I cut my teeth on the golf business for sure.
So, Mike, I got to ask. I have a 12-year-old that is, he's got opportunities in golf, and, he's got golf in his blood. But what is the right way for a parent to try to figure out how to get their kid interested in golf and then eventually maybe get them to where they can make a high school team and then beyond? What do you think the right way to approach that is?
Well, without a doubt, the number one thing I get asked that all the time. And the number one thing that I always say is, kids like to have fun. If you make going to the golf course or playing golf fun, then they're going to stay interested. And if they stay interested, then they're going to eventually start asking questions, whether it's for you or from their teacher, if it's not a parent. But I just see too many parents making golf with their children, a job or work. And kids got their whole life to work. They don't need to work when they're 12 years old. So for sure, just keep it fun and make sure that the child has a positive experience when he's out there at the golf course, that you're not overloading him with instruction. And that's the key. I mean, the kids like to have fun. That's the reason why you see them out there running on the playgrounds or running in the soccer fields or baseball diamonds and so forth. It's fun. And golf can be fun too, but too often parents make it not fun for their kid, and it chases them away from the game.
Well, along that lines, Mike, do you feel like there's a certain age when the kids kind of take over and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and they have to do this, and maybe choose one or two sports,
Right.
and say, "Hey, we're gonna kind of concentrate on this."
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate today that you have to specialize in a sport because at a pretty young age you could be 10 or 11 years old, and if you're a decent baseball player, next thing you know, you're playing travel baseball or travel basketball or travel lacrosse or soccer. that just, it forces you to commit to one sport over, geez, when I was growing up, you played whatever sport was in season,
Yep.
and you could continue playing golf while you were playing those other sports. But
Right.
now, something like even middle school or high school basketball. I mean, you don't have a summer off where you can go play golf, so you're forced to really choose between sports, which I think is unfortunate. But just going back to my original comments, that my goal with kids was always, we used to always tell parents, and you probably remember this, Josh, that junior golf, that look, the goal is for them to just come out here and have some fun, and if they haven't learned something, that's a bonus. But fun was the first goal, and when they're enjoying themselves, they're going to reach an age where they start inquiring, oh, how did you do that? Or, I'm having this issue, can you help me with this? And that's when you have them. But it was, you got them initially because they were coming out there and enjoying themselves. And as long as they're enjoying themselves, they're going to stay interested.
I love that point, Mike. And so you're so right about the travel baseball and travel basketball comment. I'm actually a travel baseball coach, and we're so entrenched in travel baseball. It's crazy. It's taken over our life. But really, my son's future should be on the golf side. It's really, it's his bloodline. So I'm trying to figure out how to keep golf fun for him without burning him out at an early age, but at the same time getting him involved in these other sports and making him an athlete. I'm kind of curious how Justin handled that growing up. Was he all golf, or did he do other sports growing up?
No, he did other sports. He played soccer when he was little and baseball when he was little. He played basketball through seventh grade, maybe something like that.
Gotcha.
And we never pushed him towards one or the other. We just kind of let him pick and choose what he wanted to do.
Sure.
Because if they're choosing instead of us, if it's their choice, they're gonna enjoy it more. If we're telling them what they have to do, then it becomes more of an effort or more of a job for them. So, it is. He played them all. It's just by the time he was 11 or 12, he was starting to travel outside the state,
right,
quite a bit, and he just had less and less time for other sports, and only the sports that were not. He was not going to be on a travel basketball or baseball team or anything.
I think I read a quote that, or you talked about that with your wife, Jenny, and you was like, hey, hold up now. I mean, he's good, but he's not that good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty good quote.
It was a basketball game when he was like in 6th or 7th grade, and you would always stay for the 7th and 8th grade games, and you'd watch those skill sets of those kids in the next class or the class above that.
Right.
And I'm sitting there watching this. Of course, these kids are going to 8 basketball camps a summer.
Right. Sure.
And Justin's going to 0, and I just looked at my wife during this game, and I said, he's got no shot at doing this next year. It's like, and she's like all mothers would do. She's sticking up for her son.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, oh well, he'll be better next year. I go, no, he's not going to be any better. He's not good. He's good for a 6th grader, but he don't have the skill set to do what these guys are doing.
I think the best line though that came off of it would be like, hey, but none of these kids could hit a 3-wood like he can over the water.
Yeah,
that's true. That back location.
I used to always say he has no qualms about hitting the 3-wood over water to a back right hole location at age 11, but he's not going inside that lane and drive the basketball. He's staying out shooting.
That's great. I remember when I first came over to work. I mean, it was again 1999, and that was my first private club experience working for Mike. And we could tell Harmony Landing stories all day, but just going into Justin, he had one of your uncles, little birdie clubs with a little good grip on there and the arrow on that. And
that
I guess he was 6 years old at that time, Mike. I mean, right around there, 6 maybe 7, and he had that little thing, and he was out hitting balls one afternoon, and I just happened to be picking the balls, or picking up the range bags. Probably is what I was doing, because Mike was
hitting balls.
No, you were the all-time picker over there. Like, very rarely did I get to drive that picker, because you were always picking balls on that hill. But anyways, he had not just like a little nickel wear out spot. This is at 6 years old. It was not the size of a dime, not the size of a quarter. It was a $50. I mean, it was the biggest. That little arrow.
He was wearing that out.
Yeah, that little arrow that had right there towards the toe was. I mean, that's all you could see. It was just that little triangle on that mic.
That little training birdie club's an awesome tool for.
Oh, it is. I still use them. Do you still have that mic, or does Justin have that?
I do have that. I've got a collection of his stuff back at Harmony Landing on display. I don't think that's up there. It's in one of my bags that I just teach with. That
awesome.
I take a bunch of props out to the range with me.
I think that's a historical treasure. That should be on display right there. That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I still tell that story, but like, there's somebody that, again, and then to the other point, Mike, and I think this is kind of important for everybody to know, and I'm sure most people are familiar with y'all's story, but there wasn't a lot of instruction to Justin. It was a lot of play. And
yeah, for sure.
So can you just speak of that and kind of like, what you saw in that regards?
Well, I mean, one of the factors there was I was, as the head pro, I was visiting other people, and I couldn't really be spending 4 or 5 hours a day with him out there when I had other duties to do. So my kind of deal was always kind of like what you said. If I was in between lessons, or if I was picking up range bags off the tee or something, I would just go by and say, "Hey, how's it going?" I'd watch him hit 2 or 3 balls, see if he had any questions. If he didn't, I'd just say, "Hey, you're doing great. Have fun. Holler if you need me." I always kind of left that with most of my students is,
right.
You let me know if I need to help you in some way. I'm not going to impose my will on you unless you're going to ask.
And, and that's one of the things that, I would say that was a trait of your teaching from the very beginning. I mean, working with the memberships over there and seeing how you gave a lesson was very instrumental for a guy like me as an apprentice, because you talk about the mentorships, and you had that old VHS tape. I don't even know what it was. JC Video before there was JC Video. I mean, it was like this big old ET thing. It had a battery on it. I mean, like, you literally had to almost get a wheelbarrow out to shovel this thing out there. Video recorded everybody, Michael, and just how you went about teaching, and then the note taking, which you were very meticulous about, and then them coming back and you're referencing their notes in the beginning of the day. I mean, it was just such a huge learning advantage for me to be able to witness that before there was really video.
Sure.
I mean, you taught before there was video, right?
Yeah, I just was, I would be around somebody or be at a seminar or something and see someone using something, and I'd be like, "Oh, I got to have that." Back then it was not as readily available as it is today, and some of those cameras and apparatuses that I had put together, cost quite a bit for what I was charging for lessons back then, but I just felt. I mean, I thought it was cool. I think I just got lucky, and the students thought it was cool.
Right.
It was a good learning tool for both of us. So everybody benefited from it.
Right, and I certainly did. I know that. Let's.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
So, Mike, Josh tells this story about when Justin was little. You guys were out on the golf course, and Justin kind of hit one over in the trees, and instead of trying to, and I think you were out there with him and told him, "Hey, just take your medicine, chip out, and let's go get par." Well, he tried to hit some big cut, around through the trees, something kind of crazy.
Those harmony trees back before the wind knocked them all over.
And you were kind of getting on him of, "Hey, Justin, let's play this the right way." Do you think that's what parents should be doing out on the course, or I'm just curious, man, because obviously you've done this better than pretty much anyone as far as getting their son to be a great player. So, I'd love that type of advice on, as a dad, what are you telling your kid out there on the course when they're playing?
Yeah, what I tried to do, and like I still do this. I mean, one of my favorite things to do with children is get them out on the golf course instead of the range because, excuse me, you're going to learn a lot more about them on the golf course than the driving range. And at a younger age, you make suggestions. If they're trying to go over a tree and you go, "Look, did you ever think about going under?" I mean, you got a
Right.
lot less risk going under, but you just kind of throw it out there. And depending on how old they are, if they're 8 or 9 years old, you go, "Hey, did you ever think about this option right here?" And if they disagreed with you, which children will do, then I just let it go. And
Okay.
I figure I'll just keep bringing it up. But it's ultimately their decision. And hopefully they get smart enough to start making the right decisions. But when they're young, well, one of my lines that I use with him all the time, and I use this with other talented juniors of, look, I know you can do this, but the question you got to answer is, do you have to do it?
Right.
I know you can. I know I'm not saying you're not capable of doing this. I'm just saying you don't need to do this at this point in the round. If it's like the last hole and you're one behind, yeah, you need to do that. But on the second hole, to risk a double or a triple by getting yourself in more trouble, that's a case where you're capable of doing it, but you don't have to do it.
And
That's the
Mike,
question always.
that was one of our famous, meetings. Hey, let's go have a meeting out on the golf course where we would go walk down. But that particular day, we were playing in the golf cart, and and as I have told the story, Justin hit that same shot, and he did it again after you kind of gave him the, why are you doing this? And he may have been 7 or 8 at that time, and we were out on number 5, and you was like, all right, get in the cart, let's go. And he was like,
Yeah,
what? And he was like, if you're going to be out here hitting goofy shots, I ain't got time for this. And you was like, hey, Josh, you want to go in? I took my bag off the cart. I was like, I'll walk. I mean, I just thought that was just really, and to your point, I mean, allow the kids to see the other shot, allow the kids to make mistakes, allow them to get out onto the golf course. And it is some advice that I have consistently used in seeing that approach. And again, right place, right time, working for the right mentors, having a guy like you and being able to see that, not knowing that it was going to lead to Justin becoming ultimately the number 1 player in the world for 5 weeks back in 2017, now ranked currently 7th in the world. I want to shift it a little bit to Justin, and while we got you on these last few minutes here, of all of his accomplishments, I mean, the 2012 Haskin Award winner, which is the best player in college, national championship team member we're really a team leader of the University of Alabama in 2013, 2017 PGA Championship, 2021. I mean, like all the tour successes, what has been the one and amateur successes, what has been the one common trait that he kind of does out on the golf course that, has impressed you?
I would say the biggest thing on the golf course that I have seen is his willingness to learn and his willingness to ask questions. He's always learning. He's still learning today, and he was inquisitive. For as high of a golf IQ that he already possessed, he was quick to ask questions of, hey, how did you do this? Or I need to learn that shot. Or, he was just always looking to learn. And, us as teachers can never stop learning. And obviously, if you have a student that wants to continue to learn, that's going to be an easy relationship because we want to help and they want to learn. And that's a good combination.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
So when Justin was growing up, I mean, I'm talking pretty young, he would play quite a bit with my cousin Jordan. And I watched Justin play quite a bit as a junior golfer, and he'd be out there with the Tiger head cover. He'd be out there with the red shirt, the black pants, and I'm talking 10 or 11 years old.
All right.
Mike, it's got to be pretty cool that you guys and Justin are now pretty close to somebody that he idolized so much growing up.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty crazy. We'll talk about that now and then. It's pretty surreal that we're out here having dinner at his house.
Right.
We're out there, hitting balls or practicing at his house or playing somewhere away from there, and it's like
It's like,
you can dream about those things, but you just don't really. I think in the back of your mind, you know that they're likely not to happen, but it just shows you that that they can. But yeah, it's pretty surreal. I mean, to basically two generations of players, and we're very fortunate that Tiger's young enough that
Right.
and just the age gap, their careers cross just in
right.
time, and we all want Tiger to get healthy and come back so they can beat heads against each other again. I know they both want that.
So, I mean, do you feel like Tiger is going to make a return like that, Mike? I mean, it's something that he wants to do. I mean, everybody's always talking about it, but, and the main thing is that we just see Tiger Woods come to Augusta for all I care. But, knowing his drive, do you feel like that's something that's on his radar, or does he just want to be a dad now?
I think he's enjoyed the latter part more than he had time for in the past, but I think he's made good use of that, getting to spend more time with his children. But like a lot of people, whether it's Tom Brady or somebody like that, I mean, when you count them out, I mean, you can't see what's inside their heart,
That's a really good point.
inside their stomach, and they're just. You cannot count someone like that out. They just have the drive to come back. So I would say that that's his plan, and I would hope to see him out there competing at a high level.
I would too.
Mike, word is you're teaching Charlie. Is this true?
Yeah, he's a good little player. Trying to get him, over the line there where he can start really succeeding. But man, he hits it nice. He's got a good golf swing, and he knows a lot about golf. I'm not sure where he learned all that from. He's got, the greatest player that ever lived as a father. So
yeah.
Well, speak about that just for a second. I mean, how hard is that for someone like Tiger himself as a father just to be able to go out and watch his kid play? I mean, that has to be
It's just a circus.
Yeah, it has to be a circus. And I mean, and one of the things like for yourself, I mean, Mike, you didn't get to see Justin play a lot. Janie obviously watched the majority of his tournaments because of your club professional duties. And just, what it's like to when you go and you had the opportunity to watch him, and then kind of Tiger's experience behind that. It has to be a circus.
Sure.
it is, and they go to great lengths to make sure that he has as normal a childhood as possible for where they're. But there's a lot of times people want to take pictures with him and have him sign stuff, and they keep all those people away from him, just like they did like at the PNC when we played. They had interview requests for him and everything. He's like, look, he's 11,
right?
Or I think he's 12 now, but it's like he's just here as a kid. He's not here as a celebrity or a named player. He's just here as a kid, wants to play golf. So they try to keep that as normal as they're able to keep it for him.
I like how you dropped that PNC father-son championship, because if I can remember correctly, there is a defending champion, and it is Mike Thomas and Justin Thomas.
Awesome.
I mean, play with Charlie and Tiger. And tell me about a little bit. That was one of my questions for you, Mike. Number one, are y'all going to defend your title? And number two, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was really cool, and that was really one of those times where I looked at Justin and said, can you imagine that we're out here doing this? And
right.
I can tell you, I played pretty much zero golf in 2020, and we had a week off between Mayakoba, the tour event in Mexico, and the PNC, and I had like 5 days that I was out there hammering balls every day for the first time in a couple of years. I just wore myself out, and I was like, look, I don't have any expectation to hit it good. I just need to know if it's going right or left. But and it was
going left, Mike. I guarantee you it was going left.
That first tee though, that was as nervous as I've probably ever been. It took me about 2 or 3 holes to calm down, and then I was fine. But yeah, I was pretty nervous out there.
And y'all going to defend your championship this year?
Oh yeah, we're going back this year.
Awesome.
I saw you make some pretty clutch putts in that thing. I know that for
This
sure.
guy can putt and chip, man.
I did putt well. That's about the only thing that has stayed. The rest of my game has gone pretty far south, but I can
Another.
still putt.
I got another Mike Thomas story, and that is my very first meeting that we had on the golf course. We were like, "Hey, Josh, let's go have a meeting." We went out and played 9, and you want to talk about nervous? I mean, I'm coming out with my big old caddy slice from Charlie Vettner, and
Right.
having to swarp it around there like that, and Mike hits it everywhere, chips it like on the very first hole is a par 5 at Harmony. He like hooks it left, it doesn't go in the range. He shakes it over to the right. he hits it down and like hits a good shot, and it's under a tree. And all of a sudden, he's under this tree and hits a shot that like skips over the bunker and goes in the hole. You chipped in like 3 times in that first 9 holes that I played golf with you, Mike, and I was just like, oh my God. I came home and I think I even called my dad. I was like, this guy has the best short game I've ever seen in my life. He's like, what? And I was like, man, he chipped it everywhere. And you've always had a really good short game, Mike, and like just what is the importance of a short game to the tour players? Tell me a little bit, like, what do you see the differences between a guy who's consistently in the top 50 in the world playing in all the events and a guy who's sitting at 200?
Yeah, the way that I heard it best, I'll answer it 2 ways. I think, first of all, they just have tremendous, obviously their technique is good, but they have a lot of imagination. So I try to teach a lot of my students that, look, good chippers have 3 or 4 ways to hit this shot that they're faced with, and they just pick the one that they're best at, or they're the one that they're feeling at that point. So they're not one-dimensional; they're multi-dimensional, so that they can hit. They can hit a lob shot 3 different ways, and so that imagination helps them a lot. But one of the best ways that the second way to answer that is I don't know the exact numbers, but I heard this once and it made so much sense is. It to 8 feet, a good web.com player chips it to 6 feet, and a tour player chips it to 2 feet. And the underlying difference there is the pressure that it's putting on your putting and the mental fatigue that you're experiencing by having to make 8-footers or 6-footers versus 2-footers translates, through the 18 holes.
Sure.
That, the stress on a tour player of making shorter putts and they're much harder shots than a college player's hitting or web.com, or I'm sorry, a Corn Ferry Tour player is hitting, because the conditions are more severe at every level.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, and I guess well, with all the new measuring statistics out on or statistics out onto the tour, I mean, which ones are the most important to you and Justin as y'all look forward to his goals? And and to that point, obviously proximity. He has led the tour in proximity from the fairway.
Yeah, our success comes and goes with putting. I mean, if he putts well, he contends. If he doesn't putt well, like this past week, I think he finished 18th or something. He was -2 strokes gained putting on 2 of the 4 days that he played. You just can't shoot good scores with, if you're losing shots to the field putting. So as we go, he typically doesn't strike it. His bad ball striking days are still pretty good. We just got to get the ball strokes in what we've been doing with the putter.
Right.
Mike, you're out there seeing the best in the world play. Who's the most, besides Justin, who's the most impressive guy you see out there on a day-to-day basis?
They all hit it so good that I don't see big disparities in that. I mean, we play practice rounds with a lot of different people.
Sure.
And so I get to see a lot of games, and, you don't have people out there, fatting and thinning shots. I mean, they hit it solid all the time. They usually drive it pretty good. Overall, they drive it good. The thing that I see is the short games. I mean, people like Patrick Reed or Jordan, I mean, their short games it's unbelievable how good that they chip the ball. And then people like, Xander, who drives it just incredibly straight. John Rahm drives it incredibly straight. And And that's a weapon when you're playing from the fairways all the time, because you have a better chance to get closer to the hole than you do from the rough on tour.
Right. And do you think that the tour players probably practice their short game more than the most not the average handicappers, but maybe more so than the Corn Ferry guys, or more so than in college kids?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it always amazes me. My stock line that I always use with my students is everybody wants to be better and shoot lower scores, but they don't do what good players do to shoot lower scores, and that is spend all their time chipping and pitching and putting. I would say, as a rule, if we're going to spend 6 hours at a golf course, let's say on a Tuesday for a practice round, or 7 hours, it's probably three to one ratio, where it's 3 times work on the short game than there is work on the long game. We may hit balls for an hour, and we'll chip, pitch, and putt for 3 or 4 hours. So that's pretty much the rule of thumb of how much that's how important it is. The other line that I always use is a short game can overcome a lot of evils, and you can't out ball strike your short game, but you can out short game your ball striking.
Wow.
Yeah, I
what,
like
what
that.
a way to put that. Mike, what's driving Justin now? Obviously, he's won so much. He's won the FedEx Cup. He's won majors. I mean, what's driving him? What's his goals?
Yeah, I mean, he was never been driven by money, and obviously we're fortunate enough now he's financially very secure. But I mean, he's driven to be the best. He's not happy that he's seventh in the world. He was second or third early on this year, and our goal was to get to number one and stay there for a little while. So that does is, he wants to be better. He wants to be the best player in the world. So that's what drives him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that. So just a couple more questions, then we'll let you get about your day here, Michael. Big caddy change on the bag for, the last week, and I guess that's going to be forthcoming for 2022, where Jimmy Johnson, who was Justin's longtime caddy, really his first, I would have to say, professional caddy,
Right,
that's been on the bag, and now he's going to Bones, notoriously on the bag for Phil Mickelson, who has subbed for Justin before. Kind of tells about that and what that dynamic is as it moves forward.
Well, we had a lot of great years with Jimmy, and just the Caddy Hall of Fame up at the BMW in Baltimore this year. He was really good for Justin. They had a lot of success together. I think they won 13 times together, and he's won once with Bones in Memphis last year, not this year. So when JJ was injured a couple of times, Bones filled in for him. So it's not a new thing for us. It's someone we're comfortable with and familiar with, and I think everybody's got their own skill set that they bring, and I think Jimmy was a very calming effect on Justin, and I think Bones will be good for him as well.
That's awesome.
Now, there was a big Twitter stink that Justin fired him, but Justin came out and said that, in fact, was not the case.
No, that's not true.
Let me ask you this question. Like when you travel abroad now, Mike, I mean, you spoke earlier about, how much you're traveling. What are some of your newfound favorite places in the world? I mean, I would like to hear that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And then do you have any time that you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do a golf trip? And where would you go?
Oh my goodness, I haven't had a golf trip in.
Oh, come on, Mike!
I don't have time for that.
Come on, let me know when you need a fourth, bro. I'm sure we'll play the best in the world. So just let me know.
I've never been one of these guys that are enamored with these great golf courses that we got to go do this or we got to go do that. Certainly, if I could take a trip, it would probably be over to Scotland or Ireland. I've been fortunate to play there a few times, and I just think, the game of golf is so respected over there, right, and the golf is so unique over there that I love playing golf over there. So that's probably my favorite place. But I'm pretty much hotel, golf course, restaurant, and then repeat the next day. So I don't really get to see the areas as far as saying, okay, well, here's one of my favorite towns. I always tell people I judge it on the food. And I probably like the food at Mexico City.
Huh.
Last year, they don't have that event anymore, but last year in 2020, and years before that, the that's my favorite place to eat. They've got some serious good Mexican. We eat Mexican food every single night down there, and it's the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, but like when I went to Mexico, the 2 times I've been to Mexico, and I mean the food is fantastic.
It
But I
is.
mean, you know what I want to do right when I get back to America? Eat Taco Bell.
Yeah, that's right, man. Eat American tacos.
Just eat American tacos. I mean, and that golf course is a fantastic little golf course. It's kind of the one that was in Mexico City. I can't remember the name of it, but
I can't say it. This chow.
Right.
I can't say it. I don't even know that. Yeah, I can.
But
see
Justin
the name
played
of it,
where
but
I mean, if I can remember, it had a lot of hills on it and kind of tree lines, so similar to like Harmony, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did always play well there. It's in a big elevation. I don't know what the elevation is, but it's like 8,000, maybe even 10,000 above sea level, and the ball goes forever down there. And so a lot of the holes, it might be 420 or something. They're driving it up in front of the green, and it's kind of a bomber's golf course, even though it's tree lined. And it was a fun golf course. We hate to see that one come off the schedule. That was a lot of fun.
Mike, what's the most important decision Justin has made as a professional that's made him as successful as he is?
I would. That's a good question. I would say starting out his first couple years, the realization that he had to develop more patience on the golf course, I think was his biggest area of growth. We talked about that a lot, and some of that's just maturity. I mean, people forget he was very young when he came out there.
Oh, yeah.
He just wasn't mature yet in that regard. I mean, he was patient more than most, but he wasn't patient enough to be at the level that he wanted to get to. And
Sure.
he would lead in birdies, but he would also make 2 or 3 doubles that week. And the goal would be just like, for your junior golfers is, look, these bogeys aren't going to hurt us.
Right.
And you can't, he was really unwilling to accept a bogey. I mean, he just hated making something higher than par. And it's like, look, the reality is you're going to make these bogeys. Let's just make sure we keep them in bogeys, because you're making a lot of birdies, and you don't need to have to make 2 birdies to overcome a double when 2 birdies can, overcome a bogey a lot easier.
And that's an interesting mental aspect. I don't know. That's pretty high level right
anytime
there. That's cool.
you look at the leaders on the tour, I mean, the guys who win, they do not have a double on their scorecard.
Yeah,
I think
that's
one of the
pretty
most
cool.
interesting things is down at Augusta. I mean, there's only been like 2 winners that have made a double bogey
during the event.
The 72
That's
holes.
impressive.
It is impressive, especially there, Mike. My final question, or not really a question, but just speak a little bit to our audience and especially those that are in Kentucky about the Justin Thomas Foundation, about what y'all have done with that foundation, and how, I mean, I feel like it's only a few years old still,
Right.
And the partnership that he's made with the First Tee here in Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, by far the proudest accomplishment that our son, in my eyes, have done has been the development of his foundation. Excuse me, and his willingness to give back to the community, and that's Jeannie and I's proudest moment of Justin. And we basically have 3 pillars of the foundation, which is military. He does some things with USA Cares, which is headquartered right there in Louisville, to help soldiers that have come home from serving. Junior golf, obviously, which is involves some of his work with the First Tee in Louisville. He's been supportive of them, and then Children in Need, which we've done a lot with the Boys and Girls Clubs in Louisville. And
That's awesome.
that's been our proudest thing about Justin, is that he's willing to give back to his community, and he enjoys doing it. So we're very proud of his with the foundation, and we got some things in the future that we're going to do some fundraising for him. It's been a little bit tougher during COVID.
Sure.
To hold events and so forth, but going forward, hopefully we can raise some more money and You can learn a little bit about his foundation on his website, JustinThomasGolf.com. There's a link for his foundation on there, and you can learn a little bit about it on there.
Well, all right. Well, Mike, I would truly appreciate your time this morning. Please give my best to Jenny. I'm glad you're in good health. I look forward to watching you on TV defending your championship with Justin. And the wraparound season already beginning, the 2021-2022. I know everybody here in Kentucky is really excited for to see Justin ascend up that world ranking, to see Justin maybe get a green jacket, to see Justin win the majors that he's eligible to compete in, and it sure is fun watching him and not only the excellent young man that he's become, but realistically the family, and what you have done and what PT has done, for the game of golf. Mike, I cannot thank you enough.
Thanks for having me on, and appreciate everything you all do for the game as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, have a great day, buddy.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Bye.
I've got friends who are casual golf fans, aren't really golfers, but will watch every once in a while. And they only really watch when Justin's in the hunt, because it's tied to the city. And, he has done a lot for golf in this area.
Roll Tide, man. I mean, that was awesome having Michael on. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, I got my Harmony shirt on today.
I was rocking those school Harmony.
Hopefully he looks on. I mean, I can't tell you how much that gentleman meant to me. I mean, I got to experience a lot in golf because of Mike Thomas, not Justin Thomas.
Right.
Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas was the president of the Kentucky section when I was one of my greatest PGA experiences at the PGA Championship was because Mike had all the duties that week at Valhalla in 2000. Yep. And one day I got to volunteer. I mean, he was like, "Hey, you can only go, one day because I need you to work the entire week." And man, it was just he gave me his pass. I ate lunch inside the clubhouse with all the players.
How cool!
It was on a Friday. I mean, it was crazy. People were like, it was a big switch over delay where people, it was just a big delay, so everybody was in the clubhouse, really complaining.
Sure.
And but it was just such a great experience in my day, and then also very instrumental in me becoming a teacher. I mean, at that point in time, I was teaching a lot at Charlie Vettner just because I was the only assistant that gave golf lessons. The other assistant wanted to be on tour, and the old pro, he liked to play at that point in time in his career. And then going over to Harmony Landing where I gave no golf lessons, I got to watch Mike do what he did. And this is back in the day when Harmony Landing was one of the most expensive clubs in Kentucky.
Right.
Harmony Landing on a busy day had 25 players.
Yeah.
I mean, and out of those 25, 16 of them played at once together.
Right.
I mean, I'll never forget that story. I mean, where one Saturday morning, Mike and I are walking up the hill pulling out carts, and I look over, there's like 12 guys on the tee, and there's 8 carts, and all of a sudden, they keep on hitting. I pull down another cart, walking the hill. Finally, I see all the cars just go up the hill. Mike was inside at this point in time. I come in and I was like, "Hey, pro, do you know there's a 12-some going down?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, those guys will be done in 4 hours." I'm like, "What?"
I love it.
And that's what they did. But that guy was very instrumental for me to continue forth to become a head professional first.
Yeah.
To build the junior golf programs that I was able to do as a head professional, from seeing how he handled himself to using that big old ET video machine. I mean, I got one of those and had VHS tapes just because Mike had VHS tapes. So, everything that he's done for the game of golf, I mean, and his story is equally as good as Justin's story. Now, Justin's story's played on the national stage.
Sure.
I mean, he said he doesn't do it for the money, but he's got $44 million in earnings since he turned professional in 2013. That's pretty good.
Well, and Mike's turned himself into one of the most renowned teaching professionals in the world.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, and what he is, we didn't really get kind of talk to it, but, still has some of his Kentucky kids that come down to Florida, and his ability to be able to spend more than just an hour with them and spend a day and take them, to the golf course, watch them play, et cetera, et cetera. He was fantastic at that. And you can see why someone like Tiger has entrusted
Yep.
Mike
And
to coach his son. I mean, that's a big step.
Think about it, because anybody in the world could coach Tiger's son, and he's
Right.
picked Mike Thomas.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. And I mean, and to like Mike's point, I mean, like when he was talking about last year at the PNC and just like, not only is he playing on the PGA Tour, he's paired with Tiger Woods, bro.
Yeah.
So he's hitting his, I mean,
Right.
he's paired with Tiger and Charlie.
Right.
Now, he's on the same tee box as
Yeah.
Tiger Woods
Yeah,
in a
good luck.
professional golf tournament.
And he had to play golf of the year.
I love it. I mean, I can see him out there, but beating balls and
Yep.
hitting that big old 5-yard fade that goes to the left like he used to. He goes, Josh, when I faded, that ball hooks 5 yards.
That's hilarious.
That's perfect. So, and just like you said, I mean, the world of golf gets excited for Justin Thomas.
for sure.
And Justin is such a passionate player. I mean, we've spoken about this on this show again. He is, to me, he's the future of American golf. He's the fiery guy that we need in the locker room at the Ryder Cups.
Yeah.
He's the guy that he's not going to accept losing.
Yeah.
He wants to play Rory McIlroy and beat his brains
And he
out.
wants to be number one in the world. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's like, what drives him now? Well, that. I mean, and the other thing I really like about what Justin has done is on a professional level is, and this kind of came about with him too, is the social media aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really opened up the doors, the spring break gang that was in there. I mean, and that whole little young crew, Ricky Fowler.
They're all out there without their shirts on playing golf somewhere.
Now they're all married and ready to have kids and
Right.
everything like that. But I mean,
But you're right, though.
he
It was
was
pretty cool.
he was on the when social media really started to make the presence that it's made, and he's embraced it, and and he shares with everybody, not right away, but at the end of the year, he always shares his goals.
Yeah.
And I think it's so phenomenal for someone like himself to put it out there of, hey, I check marked this go. I failed at this go. I check marked this go. And then as you look at the ones, if you collectively were to go back and look at that, you would see the ones where there was a failure, that was on the go for the next year.
Yep.
And I mean, and to be able to move it forward. And I
That's
think,
what makes people successful, right?
Oh, no
Successful people, that's how they become more successful.
right. And I mean, and he definitely looked, and, obviously he was part of one of the most successful golf programs in high school in Kentucky at St. X. And then going down to Alabama, it was not as, Alabama has always been good in golf, but at that point in time, they were really building their brand.
Yeah.
And, and he helped it take to another level to where, he won a national championship.
Yeah.
They've won one since he's been gone. So, he's went down and kind of, he's done everything the right way.
Yes.
He is, and you can see this ascend to being the best player in the world. You can see, his emotions out on the golf course, which, may have gotten him in trouble at times, but at the same time, it's the reason why people tune in.
I agree.
It's the reason we want to see Justin Thomas, and we want to see him not only play well, I want to see him dominate.
And we're in a weird time in our society. One small mistake, people want to hang you over. And I mean, look, he's a great person, a great kid. And that needs to not be forgotten in all this.
Well, I think that, when you look at him, I mean, what he's accomplished so far in such a young career. I mean, like Mike said, I mean, a lot of people forget he was pretty young when he came out. He came out after his sophomore year. So, that roughly puts him, right at 20. Just going out, he's won 14 times on the big tour. He's got one major. He's got a Players Championship. He's got 2 FedEx wins. He's got 2 World Golf Championships. The guy shows up and plays in the big ones.
Yep.
And he's always there. And I mean, and he's one of those guys
Ryder
too.
Cup champion.
Yeah, and Walker Cup champion. I mean, his awards are, they're going to be known for quite some time. I mean, he was the 3rd youngest player to ever make a cut on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
At the Wyndham Championship back in the
He was
day.
16.
That was 2007 or something like that he played in that. But it has been a build-up from being around such a fine gentleman of the game like his father, another gentleman of the game, PT. I mean, his grandfather I look back on, the opportunities that have been afforded to me.
Right.
One of which was being able to play with PT. I mean, he was such a good person to play with.
Now, he was a real good player, right?
I mean, he played it. Yeah. I mean, he was the Southern Ohio Player of the Year. I mean, this guy played. Two things about PT. He always played with a cigar in his mouth, and his collar was always popped.
I love it.
I mean, I would have to say, PT was the original pop the collar moment for me. I mean,
I love it.
I probably started popping my collar
because of PT.
Nah, I popped my collar a long time ago because I had. But I mean, when I saw PT with his collar pop, I was like, "This is my guy right here."
Yeah.
And we would try to take on Mike and Justin, and Mike was a fantastic player at this point in time. I mean, he was somebody that was winning sectional tournaments, that was shooting, around par and being able. He qualified for a club professional championship. He was just a really good player, and somebody when you go out and you would play these little meeting 9 holes with Justin, Mike, and PT. I mean, Mike would, again, he'd chip in, he'd putt. I mean, he'd make bombs all over the place. He would hit it everywhere, and then you add him up,
and then hey, he'd had the same score.
And he add them up, and it was 35, 36. Yeah. I mean, and that's what good players do, and I think that he even kind of alluded to it. Is like you want to be a good player, but you don't want to practice like a good player.
Right.
You don't want to do what the good. And now he can say, I know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Hey,
look, there's some sound bites from what we just had with Mike that we really need to probably cut out and put out there because it seems simple enough, but there's some advice there that just I think people will get a lot out of.
Yeah. I mean, that was a fantastic interview, and I really appreciate him taking the time to come in. Hey, we only got a few more minutes because that definitely went over. And,
we got 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit about Roy McIlroy winning the CJ Cup. I mean, that was huge.
Yeah.
And
look, man, I remember Roy winning here at Valhalla and just thinking, man, this kid is unbelievable. He's going to win so much. And he's a great person for the game. I tell you, when I became a humongous Roy McIlroy fan during the Ryder Cup, when he said, I don't care about individual stuff.
Right.
Started crying.
Right.
Because of how much the Ryder Cup meant to him. To me, I was like, that's awesome.
Well, and I mean, and it's interesting to hear him talk about what he did. He literally thought about shutting it down on Saturday and then went out and won his individual match, made that statement on national TV, and was like, hey, you know what? I'm ready to go. I'm ready to play. Yeah. And he gets into the CJ Cup because obviously he can. And, and he goes out there and gets it done. Another big story at the CJ Cup was Ricky Fowler. We had a Ricky Fowler back on top of the leaderboard, 54-hole leader. He didn't hold up on Sunday, but he had a T3 and T. That was his best finish in forever.
You know what's interesting about Ricky Fowler? He's really good for the game of golf.
He's the best.
How many kids want to be Ricky?
Right.
And they have the Puma stuff and the Cobra stuff, and it's like, man, we need Ricky Fowler to play well because he's great for the game.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, another part of that spring break game and kind of moving forward. So I mean, he is a needle maker in golf. I would agree with that. Now, and he's won a Players Championship. I mean, so he's got some big wins, but more importantly, that's me. Hey.
Well, that might be me.
That was me. It was in my phone right there. I never did unplug it. But he is, it's great to see him kind of get his form back and get into 100%. The top because he is one of the top players in the world.
Yeah.
Moving on real quick, the Zuzu Championship. What do you know about that?
Nothing.
All right. Where's it played at?
Nothing.
All right. It's in Japan. All right. Well, let me tell you about the Zuzu Championship. This is where Tiger's last win was in 2019.
Period.
His 82nd win. He is the defending.
All right.
Well, they played one in COVID last year in 2020, but it was moved to Vegas. No fans. They're back over in Japan. Got a pretty elite field. This is another made-for-TV, kind of thing. But what's interesting, Tegan, I just want to name drop one guy. Well, I'm going to name drop a couple things. One, Tiger Woods got his 82nd win there in 2019, and he was phenomenal that week. I mean, he started off with 3 bogeys on his first round, tied that in together to make it a 70, and then went on a blitz over the next 3 days to win. This golf course at Nakashima Country Club has 5 par 3s, 5 par 5s, so you can
5 par 3s?
Yeah, 5 par 3s and 5 par 5s. So this is going to be a fun golf course to play, right?
Nice.
I mean, sign me up to play this. But it, has a really quality field this week, and I'm going to let you Google that real quick before we go on to things. But interesting enough, it has the number 1 ranked amateur in the world, and his name is Kiete Nakajima.
Yeah,
so he is the number one ranked amateur in the world.
United States.
He is from Japan.
Yep.
All right. And he won on the Japan Professional Golf Tournament or tour, which is, a pretty big tour. I mean, he won 4 weeks ago against the pros.
What's his age?
Young. I mean, I know his age. I do not know his age. I wish I could tell you that. But, I think he's going to come in with a lot of hype, and that's going to be kind of fun to watch because I would have to say that he makes a cut. Yeah. And he's going to play well there. I mean, with a dub against these guys. Now, this is his first PGA Tour experience.
Okay.
All right. He's won, like I said, 4 weeks ago. He went on the Japan Golf Tour. This is his first one against the big wigs, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, the Tiger Woods story is going to be played out a lot, and so that'll be fun to watch. I mean, to be able to see some of that, I'm sure the Golf Channel.
What did you take from Mike there? Did you get the feeling that Tiger might be back?
Oh, Tiger's coming back.
Did you get that feeling?
Did you get that feeling?
I kind of got that feeling too.
He's like, hey, you can't count. I mean, the moment you tell a guy like Tiger, or he even dropped Tom Brady. I mean, the moment you tell a guy like Tom Brady, hey, you're not going to be able to play. What's Tom Brady going to do? He's going to go win him the 7th Super Bowl.
You're right.
I mean, that's what he's going to do.
You can't count those guys out, and that's basically what he was saying.
Yeah, and that was a real that was a good take right there. I mean, I definitely feel like Tiger's coming back, and and I've said this before in previous podcasts. I mean, we're going to see Tiger play at Augusta. That's all I care about.
I agree too.
I mean,
he'll be back at the Masters in some sort of capacity,
and he's going to compete at some point in time. You never know, but I mean,
this amateur guy you're talking about, he's 21.
He's 21.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you my winning pick right here.
Okay.
He is a Japan local. He is your current Masters champion, Hideki Matsuyama. He was second here to Tiger Woods in 2019. Obviously, he's not going to have any transition time layover. I mean, I do believe he did play in the CJ Cup, so he's making the jump from Vegas to there, as many of the top players are in the field this week. But I definitely think that he will be the guy.
Hard to go against him.
Yeah, hard to go against him this week. And then
Morikawa's in the field.
Morikawa played well. We talked about him last week. He ended up coming up second, at his home course. And then also, too, making a start for the year is Patrick Cantlay. I mean, the guy who was the best player on the PGA Tour last year, circling the wagons and getting back in and again.
You know what I thought was interesting when Mike was talking? We asked who impresses him most out there, and first name he drops is Patrick Reed.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, Patrick Reed's a grinder, bro.
And he was talking about how good their short game is, and I just thought that was interesting that he dropped that name, because I in a million years I wouldn't have thought he'd be somebody he would mention, but that's interesting.
Well, I mean, when you get all those nice lies because you're over there fluffing just a little bit, I mean, it's easy
there
to be.
You go.
All right, let's roll this show out. Again, appreciate everybody listening to Loopers for Life, powered by Tal Grace Marketing Media. You can catch us on BuzzFeed. You catch us on Apple Podcasts. Like our Facebook page. Hit us up on Twitter. Some point in time, we're coming to the Instagram world. Thank y'all very much. Mike Thomas, Roll Tide.